As we're in the middle of election season, I want to just spend a little time talking about Galatians 5:14. Love one another as yourself. It seems during this time we often get very polarized as a society. A lot of us go to social media just to point out that the other guy is wrong and doesn't have it figured out. And how can you see it that way? That's not really what we're called to do as Christians. We just need to learn to respect each other's values, opinions, and talk through those as adults instead of just name calling and all those kind of things we do. I actually want to share an experience with you that I had recently when I was out in Sonoma. I stayed at Airbnb out there, and I had a great discussion with the owner of this Airbnb, who was of a very different worldview than myself. I guess you might be the way you would say it. And we talked for like 2 hours, but we talked as people who respected each other's viewpoint, explaining our own, and maybe, hoping to convince the other person to see it our way. But if at the end of the discussion we didn't, we could still walk away knowing we treated the other person with respect and dignity. And that is what loving one another is about. We can have differences of opinions, but it's how do we sort through those differences? How do we present those to other people? And quite frankly, how do we represent Christ through our disagreements? Galatians 5:14 is a great place to look for encouragement in that kind of a situation where we may not know how to handle it. Think about, what would Christ do in a situation like that? Would he be confrontational, or would he show love to the person who doesn't necessarily agree with him and maybe try and swing them to his side? Or if not, they'd just go their own way. I'm thinking of the rich young ruler here, where Jesus, he comes to Jesus and says, what do I need to do to have eternal life? And Jesus tells him these things, and he says, I've done all those. Well, then when he says, hey, go sell everything you have and give it to the poor, he can't do that. That was obviously a very difference of opinion than Jesus, and he just went his own way. Let things settle theirself. It's not about winning the argument. It's about representing Christ well. We'll see you next week.